down to Biscayne.
Yikes. 5 on the floor, ride for my dogs. Where here's the thing, you can check the score. Hustle hard, couple scars, wearing bubble frogs. Just like Butler said, you in trouble, y'all. Kept the flow playing, got it all band. Y'all seen the block, stop with one hand. And Pat we trust, it's power, have the guts. We're here to bring the heat, y'all can hang it up.
Welcome to 5 on the Floor, a daily insider show on the Miami Heat and the NBA, featuring Ethan Skolnick, Greg Sylvander, and Alex Toledo, plus others from the 5 Reasons Sports Network.
Welcome back to 5 on the Floor. I'm your host, Greg Sylvander. Today's floor plan with me, just Alex Toledo. So it's a two-man weave. I guess that's not even a weave. So we're just passing the ball back and forth. Today's floor plan, and you can follow him at Tropical Blanket, Alex Toledo, myself at Greg Sylvander on Twitter. As I stumble around the beginning of this episode, we're going to talk in-season tournament. We figured this deserves an episode because a lot of us are basically saying, what is this? And how should we be excited? Should we not? So we're going to go over the format, what the Heat are going to look at, and then what our thoughts are about that. So that's basically what we're going to talk about. But before we do any of that, do you have a leak? Because if you have any leaks, you need to reach out to Water Cleanup of Florida. You know, the one-stop shop for water, mold, and cleanup. If you have a water leak, dealing with mold damage in your home or business, call Water Cleanup of Florida, 954-579-0356 for immediate assistance. With over 60 years of combined experience, Michael, Robert, and their team are prepared to handle all types of leak detection issues 24 hours a day, 365 days a year. After the leak has been located and repaired, Water Cleanup of Florida will then clean, dry, and fully restore the damaged area. Fully licensed, insured, certified to provide the one-stop shopping that every busy homeowner and business owner requires. Call Michael anytime on his personal cell, 954-579-0356. The website you see right there is wcufl.com. Again, that's 954-579-0356. Water Cleanup of Florida. If you have the schmutz, they got the guts. All right. So Alex, they released this in-season tournament schedule today, and that was new for everybody. And there was a lot of different content that went out related to it that we're going to reference. A lot of it provided by the NBA because they're trying to help us all understand what the hell this is. But I want to give a shout out to Azam Masood because he's been writing some really dope stuff for the NBA.com and the Miami Heat in particular. He got to write a great piece about Dwayne Wade and his retirement ceremony. And now he followed it up today with a great piece about the NBA Cup chase, because the NBA Cup is the new trophy that they will be competing for in this new in-season tournament. So we're going to try to figure out what the heck this means, how it applies to the Heat. And then we'll, I guess, talk about if we think that this is actually going to make Jimmy Butler play in an early regular season game. I think there's lots of angles that we can get into here because of the way the Heat handle regular seasons, particularly last year, Alex. I'm going to throw a little bit of the facts out here. And then I would just like to get your overall your initial reaction to this, and then just, we'll kind of kick around the different aspects of the tournament and get into specifically from the Heat's perspective if we think they're actually going to care about any of this. So this is what they did, y'all. The format is that all 30 teams are divided into 6 groups. The process for selecting the groups was randomized. It was based on win-loss records. The Miami Heat landed in what is called East Group B, alongside the Milwaukee Bucks, New York Knicks, Washington Wizards, and Charlotte Hornets. It's an interesting group. I like that the Knicks are in it. I like that the Bucks are in it. There is Charlotte's in it, so that's close for me to be able to cover some games. I like that. So in addition, every NBA team will have 4 group play games that will take place on Tuesdays and Fridays from November 3rd through the 28th. So this is some early season stuff where essentially they're converting regular season, regularly scheduled games into tournament games based off the fact that they're these group play games. The only NBA games played on tournament nights will be group play games. Miami then will face off against each of the aforementioned opponents from East Group B in the following order. They play Washington, then they play at New York and at Milwaukee. After those teams go at each other, all the groups come together. The top 8 teams qualify for a knockout round. The team with the best record in each of the 6 groups makes that round. Then there's a wild card team. It gets really antiquated in terms of the way that this all plays out. So I'm gonna tell everyone, go and read Azam's piece on NBA.com. The Miami Heat tweeted it today. But just in theory, as we look at this format of putting these teams together, of some of the incentives being that you're going to have an all tournament team, you're going to win $50,000 for each player who loses in the qualifiers, up to $500,000 for each of the champions. Alex, I've talked enough. Do you think the Heat are going to approach any of this differently? What is your thoughts on this generally? I have some thoughts. I'm saving them because I'd like to hear yours first.
Shit. Now that you say that, I'd almost like to hear yours first. No, but in all seriousness, like, I appreciate the efforts from the NBA to try to spice up the regular season. I think this is maybe the kind of the best compromise when it comes to not messing things up too much while also adding new things. And, they added little wrinkles here and there, like the fact that it's a knockout round, right, where it's single elimination once you get past the group stage games. And then the fact that the finals or whatever are played in Vegas, right, which is probably alongside Seattle, probably going to be back in the NBA at some point. But they're that's kind of how they're using Vegas right now, other than the summer league, and I think players will enjoy that part. Like, the money, it doesn't seem that much for what a lot of these guys make. Like, I'm sure they wouldn't mind to make the extra money for sure, especially when you talk about some of the lower end players salary wise. I'm sure, like, the Haywood Highsmiths of the world are gonna care about that. Like, why? Sure, whatever.
Hey, they've said LeBron is pretty cheap, so I'm sure that he also, like, I say cheap generally speaking. Like, I've heard from many players.
He said it himself.
Okay,
I think that was like a thing on the shop or something. I remember that clip.
That's what's up. I'm glad that it's out there beyond. I just went in when we calling nobody cheap because that could be taken as a shot. But so all the money is what's up. I didn't mean to steal your thunder there, but I'm interested. I want to know from you. Do you think that the most valuable player of the in-season tournament, being on the all-tournament team, the selections will be based on the players' performances on both group play and the knockout rounds? Do you think that any of that, winning the NBA Cup, do you think that any of that is going to, like, players are going to go after that? Because here's where I come in. Hear me out. The Miami Heats of the world, I don't know that they're going to approach this any differently. I think they're just going to play it like the regular season. And if they advance, great. But I see benefit for these, like, upstart teams or these, like, small market groups that really know that the end game's not going to work well, but maybe they could have a run early on. Like, a New York Knicks team could take a run here early, win this thing, and feel like they got their chests out because they haven't won nothing in so long.
Yeah, it's going to be the closest they get to winning a trophy is winning
exactly.
that NBA Cup.
Exactly. So, like, I could see where maybe this could morph into fans feeling excited about it if players take pride in the awards that they win from it. But if it'll be interesting to see when the playoffs do come, if you see players kind of take shots at who wins this by, like, saying, I'm after the real prize, basically. And I hate to kind of make this a soap opera driven kind of thing, but, like, I'm interested to see if people don't take this shit that seriously because they take the playoffs seriously. But I do think certain situations, young teams that, like, maybe have nothing to lose and they're just hot at the beginning of a season, it could get a team kind of together in a way that maybe catapults them for the rest of the year. Am I crazy? Am I being too optimistic with that idea for some franchises not named the Miami Heat? Because I don't think that's the Heat's path here.
I'm with you completely. pretty much everything you said there. I'm with you that I don't think the Heat are gonna, you know, put a lot of stock into that. Like I do think they're gonna compete in those games. It's not like I don't think it's gonna be where the regular season standard usually is. I don't think we're gonna see playoff Jimmy in those games. You know what I mean? But I don't know. Like I bet you once the questions start coming on media day or whenever when these games roll around, more likely about when they start asking Spo and the players how seriously are you taking these games? They're gonna say it's every game matters. We're out there to compete. They're gonna say all the right things, but I don't know how much they care. If I'm being real, just what I would think. I'm not sure, but I do think, like you say, when it comes to smaller market teams, when it comes to teams that don't really have a shot at making noise in the playoffs, teams that, like for example, prior to last year, the Kings making the playoffs for the first time in a million years, I think the NBA Cup would have been cool for them. Maybe they can go and do that, right? Because they're also not going to win a title. I mean, shout out to them. Happy for them that they were able to break that streak.
Catching strays.
I mean, I like the Kings, but like we all know they're not going to win a championship with that squad.
Yeah.
And so I think the extra money, the extra kind of national time, getting to play in Vegas and trying to add some stakes to the regular season, it's admirable. I get why they're trying to do that. I'm skeptical that they're going to get the results that maybe they want. I'm skeptical that maybe it takes a while for it to kind of get, for people to retain it, because it's still new to everybody. The fact that they're having to put out videos and articles to explain to people how this works, since it's such a new concept. Like I wonder if people are even going to notice, right? Like let's say you're a Heat fan buying a ticket for one of these games, right? That just so happens to be,
one of the
I don't think people are going to be like, oh yeah, we got to go because it's a tournament game, right? But who knows? Maybe the knockout stuff ends up becoming fun. The Vegas thing just adds a different thing to it, where like it's kind of a neutral ground. So that I think that's probably the best part about it. I'm not very excited for it, but I appreciate the effort. They didn't go too far. They didn't do anything too crazy.
You're right.
But I also don't think they're going far enough, right, to add stakes to it. Like I don't think the money is enough. It's cool, but I guys are not going to be playing their hearts out for this. So I think it's just going to be regular season games with a little bit of spice added to them.
And you know what? That doesn't sound half bad.
Fine.
It'll make it a lot more fun to play November and December on PrizePicks. Y'all know the daily fantasy partner of 5 Reasons Sports and 5 on the Floor, prizepicks.com, or download the app. Use the code 5, FIVE. That'll get your initial deposit matched. Why do you want to deposit? Because it is daily fantasy simplified. You basically choose your favorite players from your favorite sports in the stats that make sense to you, whether it's basketball, points, rebounds, assists, or if it's NFL, receiving yards, rushing yards, passing yards. You can do NFL and NBA tickets together. You can do flex plays, power plays, but use the code 5, FIVE, to get your initial deposit matched up to $100. PrizePicks.com. They have a great platform, a web-based platform, but also you can download the app wherever you get your apps on your phone. Use the code 5. That'll get your deposit matched up to $100. That's PrizePicks, daily fantasy simplified. So this is, I guess we'll close here. And this was meant to be a quick episode just so that we touch on this. I want to reiterate the timeline of this, because this frequently asked questions section of NBA.com is very insightful. The inaugural in-season tournament, Alex, it tips off Friday, November 3rd, and it culminates on Saturday, December 9th. That December 9th game, that championship game, is an extra game played. I want to remind everybody that the Miami Heat played the most games out of any team last year when it finally was all said and done, when you included the play-in games and all that. I do not look for them in November and December to be all in on these games. I do think that there's an opportunity for young players to get a degree of confidence from it, from maybe winning awards, making all tournament teams, things like that. I think that that is stuff that young players can maybe gain confidence with, but ultimately I don't see the Heat getting really, really involved here because it's so early in the season, Alex, to your point. The other part of it is that it
It's
doesn't
like a
have any
month-long
real
tournament.
stakes on the playoffs, so
Yeah.
I don't know. Is there anything that we've missed here that you think we should cover related to this tournament? How you think the Heat may handle it? The championship being an extra game that's not on the schedule, so that's like another extra game you're adding. And do the Heat care? I really feel like this is something that's going to be a lot more popular maybe in other markets in this particular season, but you never know. There's other years where it's a transition season for the Miami Heat, and all of a sudden a tournament like this could be worth a little bit more than it is maybe in what we're expecting to be a contending season for the Miami Heat.
It's weird, man. Like I said, I appreciate the efforts by the NBA to try to spice things up. I do think some of it is weird, right? And just some nitpicky stuff, right? For example, the fact that it's kind of a month-long tournament technically, where it's like you said, it starts early November and ends early December. So you're just gonna be like kind of trying to hype up this tournament. It's right at the beginning of the season, like you said. Whereas like before, I feel like when this was rumored and kind of talked about over the years, it was talked about as a mid-season tournament.
Yep.
I feel that makes more sense than having this tournament right at the
Those
beginning of the
games
season.
matter more. You're right.
Yeah, I mean that's a good point. I wasn't even thinking about that. That's a great point. I was really just thinking about it. Like it feels weird to have this tournament right when the season starts, and I think they're just doing that because that's when everybody's watching the NFL, right? Like the old adage that like a lot of NFL fans don't start watching the NBA until after the NFL season ends, and maybe that's it's the low point for the league. I'm not sure if that's the case, but I wouldn't be surprised either. The other thing is like the way that they pick the groups. I guess if you randomize it, it adds, a factor of there's going to be different groups every year, which I kind of like. I think it would have been easier and just simple, easier to explain to people if you would have just done divisions, right? Because divisions don't have much of a purpose anymore, anyways, other than like you play those guys 4 times, as opposed to other teams. And so maybe that it just would have been like another reason to have divisions since they're going to keep those. But I don't mind it. I do think having the Heat being in a different group every time makes it feel different every time instead of just playing the Wizards, the Hornets, the Magic, and it's kind of boring. Like there's no stakes in playing those teams other than disappointing regular season losses because that's what happens with a lot of those teams. But other than that, it's cool. I would just try to, I think it would be cooler, like I mentioned before, the month-long stuff, if they just tightened it up and there was like a specific week or something dedicated to it, where they're just
with single
there's a
elimination
focus
games
on it instead of just like, every Tuesday and Friday. This is just weird approach they're taking to it. But other than that, it's fine. I don't like by the way, I don't like the extra game on the schedule. I think.
Is it your understanding that it'll be the team from the East and the team from the West? Right?
I'm not sure. I would assume
because
so.
it looks like the groups are completely like each group is
East and West.
Eastern Conference teams with Eastern Conference teams and Western, like they're split by conference. So I'd imagine
I think
the
so.
championship will come from each conference. That's probably going to sound super like mundane of me to have to even say that out loud. But it just, to your point, I don't like the fact that the Heat coming off a year where they already played the most games with a mostly older group, to then have to, shuffle in another game. It's, I don't know. I think the Heat may try to avoid that type of stuff.
Maybe they could. No, it's just there's no logistical way of like eliminating a game that's already on the schedule. Or maybe how about this? If the Heat, you eliminate a game that's already on the schedule with the team that you're playing against, so that everybody's still playing 82, and you're still playing against that team. It's just happening in a different day. It's just weird logistically because like those tickets are going to be sold ahead of time, of course.
Yeah,
But
it gets
I just
tricky.
don't love the idea of an extra game when, like, it kind of comes as a punch in the face to the idea of like shortening the season, right?
Yeah,
It's like
I bet the
game.
players are thinking that way. But I
It's
bet
just
you
one game. But yeah, you've
here's
already
the
added the
answer.
playing stuff too.
Here's the answer. Don't make that damn play-in tournament. You got to stay above top 6 or better seed.
That's the
That's how you stay
motivation.
out of it. That's the motivation. And
You
so
don't want to
maybe
play
that'll
2 extra games.
maybe to stay out of the play-in, that will motivate the Heat to play harder in this new in-season tournament. That's the way we're spinning it tonight on 5 on the Floor. Thank you for joining us. We will have you covered the rest of the week with a bunch of different topics. We're going to talk Tyler Hero. We're going to talk all these Exhibit 10 guys. We got some fun stuff coming up, just trying to button up this roster as we head into the doldrums of summer before training camp comes. And, we're always keeping an eye on Dame. Thank you to PrizePicks. Thank you to Water Cleanup of Florida. If you got the schmutz, they got the guts. And use the code 5FIVE with PrizePicks. Peace out.